think we are ready for segment 2. How'd you guys do in the first round, do you think? 2 and 3? Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure that those still come around. But they are going to start coming around with the second segment, which is going to be our darker ale category. Mainly quads, doubles. In fact, I just learned today. I overheard some people pronounce them as doubles, and Lanny corrected us on that. But these beers, the first thing you're going to notice about them is their color. These are brown beers, whereas these beers are going to get their color though from rather than like an English brown ale or a Schwarzbier from Germany. They're getting those from roasted malts, whereas these are actually going to get their color from a highly caramelized version of a sugar syrup or a dark candy sugar. So you're going to find with the notes on these are going to be a little more like burnt sugar or raisins, fig. You might notice on the higher ends of some quads like the rum or toffee or caramel flavors coming through. The hop bitterness is generally pretty low in these, which is going to lend to its sweetness. They do have a tendency to finish a little dry. Doubles are going to come in around like the 6.5, 7.5 range, whereas the quads, they can be upwards of 13%. In fact, I think that's probably one of the main differences about these two styles, are that doubles, they have a tendency to mask that alcohol fairly well, whereas in quads, they're going to be a little more of that showcase. So we are going to be coming through pairing some, what is the, these are going to be the Frites with this one. There are some, I think there might still be some honey left over if you like to revisit that first course, but these doubles and quads are fantastic for pairing with more of like your earthy, your gamey foods too. So if you do pick some of these up and like to do a pairing at home, fantastic with lamb, it just really pairs extremely well with the fattiness in there too, because these beers are going to be a little highly carbonated. It has that power to kind of cut through a lot of those fatty dishes too. So I'm going to go ahead and help these guys as we get some of these second beers around for you. But flag me down if you have any questions on these, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers. We're doing the best that we can, so we hope that you guys are having a good time still, and if you have any suggestions on how we can improve, we're always open to them. So we are going to get started with our third segment, and I would like to introduce Minnesota's first certified Cicerone, Michael Agnew.
So I get to introduce what I think is a really interesting round. As I'm doing this, I'm going to take you back to a couple of things that Lanny said at the beginning. So we've got 3 styles in this round. We've got Belgian Pale Ales, which is a style you don't actually see that often around here. We've got Belgian IPAs, and we have Belgian Strong Goldens. Yeah, it's not like I have to say Belgian in front of all those, do I? This is a Belgian thing. Belgian, it's Belgian. These are all Belgian beers. So to start with Belgian Pale Ales, these are like, think of Belgian Pale Ales as kind of the English bitter of Belgium. It's the Belgian street beer, it's the Belgian session beer, particularly familiar around the city of Antwerp. These are drinking beers. These are like what I call poundable beers in Belgian terms. When you think of Belgium, you think of all the high alcohol beers that we've been drinking. These are session beers. These are beers meant for, an afternoon sitting on the patio and knocking back a few. What you're going to get from those is moderate bitterness. You're going to get some nice stone fruit flavors, some orange overtones. Hop flavor is very moderate as well. And what I love about these beers is the malt character. I love malt to begin with, but they have this nice kind of nutty, biscuity malt flavor that goes along with them. Now, in this category, without giving away the house here, we do have one really unique example of this style that tastes very little like what I just explained to you. But it is one of the truly unique beers in Belgium. It's a beer really like none other in the world, I think. So that's all I'm going to say about it. But when you get it, enjoy it because it's really good. And then try and guess what it is. You'll know it when you get it. Let's just say that. The next style I want to talk about, I'm going to jump Belgian IPA and come back to that. The next style is the Belgian Strong Golden category. And this is going to take me back a little bit to what Lanny was saying about styles when we started and the sort of the fungibility of style, beer style categories in Belgium. So the Strong Golden category is very much like Belgian triples. So it's a golden colored beer. It's up in the 9-10% alcohol range. And really there's if you're looking at particularly American-made versions, there are a lot of beers that sort of, if you look one place, they call it a triple. If you look another place, they call it a Strong Golden. And there's a lot of fudge room between these two styles. There's a lot of things that carry over from one to the other. But if you want to look sort of generally at what's going to divide the two, the Strong Goldens tend to be a little bit drier, a little less sweet. Like Lanny was saying, the triples should be well fermented out, but the Strong Goldens are going to be even a little less sweet. Lighter body, even though they're big, strong beers. You'll get a little more hop character out of them. The bitterness will be a little bit stronger than in a triple. You'll get a little more of the spicy, kind of herbal hop flavors from European hops. But you're still going to get that characteristic Belgian yeast flavor. So you're going to get the apricot and stone fruit overtones. You're going to get the white pepper phenolic flavors from that yeast. So that's kind of an overview of the Strong Golden category. Now, one of the most interesting categories we've got in this flight is the Belgian IPA. And again, going back to what Lanny was saying about the carryover of styles and kind of the wave that American craft brewing is throughout the rest of the world. So I'm going to take you way back to the start of American craft brewing. So at the beginning of this, it was a bunch of folks who had tried beers in other places and found they couldn't get them here and were frustrated by that. So they said, well, let's make them here. So they started copying European styles. So all the early craft brewers, primarily they were copying English styles, they were copying the German lagers, and some of them early on started copying the Belgian styles. So we were taking from European beer culture and trying to recreate it over here. Gradually, the American craft brewers started tweaking those styles, particularly the pale ales from England. So, the American pale ales and American IPAs, it's kind of like, well, we've got all these American hops over here, particularly on the West Coast where they grow all these hops. They're like, well, we've got all these hops. We grow them right here. Let's use them. And in true American style, they said, and if we can use them, we can use even more of them because more is always better, right? More is always better. So, as opposed to the English pale ales, the American pale ales came to be characterized by hops. So they were really hop showcases as opposed to the English styles, which have a lot of malt that supports, and the hops, it's a much more balanced beer. And as Lanny said early on, all those over-hopped American beers were really reviled in Europe. The Germans still hate them, but the rest of the world's starting to warm to them a little bit. But they'd taste these beers and be like, oh, what are you thinking? Have you lost your minds? There's no balance here. But gradually they started to sort of worm their way into the heads of European brewers, and particularly the Belgians, I think, where it really is this stylistic anything goes kind of attitude. They started to take on this idea of hopping things up a little bit more. And so sometime around the turn of the 21st century, you started to get Belgian IPAs showing up. And basically what that is, you start with a base of a triple or a Strong Golden. So again, it's going to be a light-colored beer, sort of a light gold to dark gold. Still has that characteristic Belgian yeast flavor, the peppery phenolics and the stone fruit overtones. And then you load a bunch of hops in there. So as compared to a triple or a Strong Golden, the bitterness is a much higher level. And you get this nice, spicy, peppery hop flavor from European hops that ties in with the peppery character from the yeast. So you get basically what is a hopped up triple is the Belgian IPA style. It's a style that I find people either love them or hate them. It's not my favorite style personally. In my mouth, the phenolics of the yeast and the spice of the hops kind of do battle. But a lot of people just really eat these beers up. So that's pretty much what you got coming in this flight. So hope you enjoy it. Look for that one special beer.
We're about to get ready for the fourth segment, which is one of my personal favorites. And we are going to introduce to speak about wild beers and spontaneously fermented ales. Jeff Halverson. Jeff is going to be running next week here. And I'm not sure, he could talk a little more about his event too, but he puts on one of the coolest events in the Twin Cities called Where the Wild Beers Are. So if you like sour ales, please listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about, and he puts on a great event. So cheers, Jeff.
All right. Self-admittedly, I'm not as animated as the last couple speakers, so I apologize. And you guys are still going to get my tail, but I think I'm going to make it up to you. Michael's going to help me out. The first couple of things I want to talk about is it's reiterating, because we always go back to Lanny's conversation, and it's about presentation. And if I don't have the best situation with projecting here, but on the back wall you can see how important presentation of beer in Belgium is. You can see the snacks that they give you. You can see a Jardine Creek, and this is actually a cask creek that they had. Or if you order a Cantillon Creek, they're normally going to be poured in a basket. And Michael over here, he's got one of the traditional wine baskets that we would be pouring the lambic out of. So it's not uncommon to go to one of the better beer bars in Belgium and be served one of these beers in the proper basket, in the proper glass. So we're going to crack this one here in a minute, but I want to finish up talking about two different things. We're talking about not just lambics, but sour beers in general for Belgium, of which there are really three mainly known styles. There are the Flanders Reds, there are the Oud Bruins or Flanders Browns, and the Lambics. We'll call it lambic, we'll call it lambic. I'm from here. I don't speak French and I don't speak Flemish, so I'm going to butcher all the pronunciations. I know there's a lot of very knowledgeable people here, so if you've got something for me, yell it out. I want to hear the corrections. But anyway, as you can see, Cantillon in the back in a basket, and we'll go next. And you can't really see, but that's me and this really surly looking dude. But the cool thing is, as you can see, they're just at the bar here, and there's multiple wine baskets, multiple of these baskets on the bar, ready to serve beers that are being ordered. And this is so important for Belgium. These are about 8 years old, these pictures are, but they take it so seriously there. So that's super important. So the number one style we're going to talk about right away is, one more presentation. This is one of my favorite ones. This is Drie Fonteinen bottles from, like I said, about 8 years ago. But you go to Oude Arsenal in Antwerp, and they crack the bottles open, and they leave the cage intact and let the cork sag on the side. And it's an incredible presentation. Everything is taken so seriously. And this is a bar where I sat next to two old ladies that have been there every day for the last 30-odd years, and they had their granddaughter at the table coloring. And it's a family event. Beer is important to them, and so I love this picture. All right, so the first style, and then we're going to try and show the basket in use. The first style here is Flanders Red. Anyone know what brewery this is? I'm sorry? There we go, Rodenbach. So the Flanders Red beers are barrel-aged sour brown beers. They're generally quite acidic in nature. They have a lot of sour and sometimes vinegary notes. They shouldn't have too much. Really ripe fruit, really huge. And Michael's going to be way better in descriptors than I am. But just an amazingly complex brown ale, sour brown ale. Cherry and balsamic. Yeah, so there's more. Quite often they're served without any kind of addition of fruit. You can get actually cherries added to them, like the Rodenbach Alexander was in the day. But anyway, they have these gigantic, huge, what's the pronunciation? Foeder? Foeder. these barrels that you're seeing here, which they have dozens and dozens of, are multiple people tall. It's a huge haul of these oak foeders. The important thing to note about them is the amount of liquid inside them versus the side, like, kind of profile that the beer actually hits is fairly low. So you've got a lot of beer and not a lot of oak touching it, which is different than if you had a 5-gallon batch of beer that you're trying to sour, and you're going to have a lot more air coming into it. You're going to have a lot more oak touching it. So the oak quality is more for the multiple batch, the microorganisms that's going to come. You're not going to get a ton of the oak flavor.
They also, I mean, some of these barrels are like 150 years old.
True, very true.
The character that it would impart is gone.
It's gone, absolutely. So it's more important to keep the critters alive than anything else. Go ahead. All right, so with that, go ahead. Question.
When you say cherries, like, are they on the side to eat with it?
No, I'm talking cherries in the beer, and we'll see some fruit additions into Alembic in a minute. So literally, and we'll go over styles. Most Flanders beers, I haven't seen a ton of actually imported Belgian Flanders that have fruit in them. There's a little bit. I know that the people that do Duché de Bourgogne, they do, I believe, a Krieken beer that they do add cherries to it. Anyone else? No? Okay, so most of them are straight, but they do have ones that they do add fruit. Lambics, we're going to talk about different fruit additions. All right, so the next style, which is not part of this picture, but is Oud Bruin, and an Oud Bruin is essentially a sour brown ale. It's maltier. It's generally sweeter than what a Flanders Red would be. But it's also generally fermented in stainless rather than in oak. Not always, but mostly. That's another style. Now, we're talking about, there's only about 5 Belgian breweries that even make an Oud Bruin anymore, and most of them are not imported. I'm not going to give the name of the one that is, because if they have one, it's probably that one. But anyway, they're fairly uncommon these days. That's Oud Bruin. The last one, and it's my passion. I hate the word passion, but I'm really passionate about Lambic. These are the Lambic beers. I'm going to say it Lambic, Lambic. There's a bunch of different pronunciations for Lambic. That's the southern drawl on it. No. Anyhow, these are really the beers that I love. This is the reason I started where the wild beers are. It's the traditional Belgian spontaneously fermented beers. And I wrote down all these amazing notes, and I totally didn't bring them up here. So I'm going to go off the cuff instead. The difference, we've talked about the most important part of Belgian beer is the yeast. And this is where, when you talk about Lambics, Lambic is the thing that is the absolute opposite of everything that is traditional in brewing. Most beers, the yeast is the most important thing. In Lambics, it's spontaneously fermented. They don't specifically pitch yeast into their beer to ferment it. There is this mystique that it is always, you open up to the open air and it inoculates the wort, and it's magic, and it all happens. Now, some of that is true, and we'll see some pictures up here that just show this, but other parts of it are, these breweries have been doing it for so long that all of these wild yeast and bacteria are actually in the wood, so pretty much any wort that they produce is going to turn into a Lambic. So go ahead. This is Brasserie Cantillon. Cantillon is a brewery in Brussels. It's one of only 2 breweries that remain in Brussels for Lambic. You're talking about a dying group of breweries. They have resurged now because of people like us, but there are only 8 traditional breweries that still make Lambic. This is really the only one in Brussels that still does it. Bellevue does brew, but I don't believe they brew in Belgium in Brussels anymore. You can see most of these Lambics, they take 2 to 3 years to produce. They're generally a blended product. So you're going to take a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year wort to actually blend into a product. And there's really 4 different styles of Lambic that are quite prevalent. You've got Kriek, you've got Framboise or Frambozen, and then you've either got Gers or you've got Sometimes you see Faro, and sometimes you see it in a bottle, and we'll talk why about if you've got it in the bottle, it's probably not real Faro. But as you can see, there's just hundreds of casks of multiple ages of these beers. So once again, they are wild, spontaneously fermented. There's no extra yeast added. So go ahead. They have a turbid mash. They are primarily 40% unmalted wheat, 60% barley. You can just see different pictures of the, this is a mash tun where they put all of the grains in the brewing liquid. Another picture. This is the boil kettle with copper. The other really interesting aspect of lambic beers is that a lot of people use hops to make beer bitter. They use hops for the antiseptic qualities of it. They're using aged hops, stale, cheesy, bad hops, hops you would never want to use in home brewing. That's what they use, and these are bales of stale hops, essentially. They use a large proportion of them, but it's really only for the antiseptic qualities. So you're talking about 2 or 3 year old, not sealed hops for home brewers that are like, oh my God, that's horrible. That's exactly what they use.
So any flavoring and bittering element from those hops is
Right.
long since evaporated.
Right, so yeah, exactly. So it's really antiseptic only, bittering, very minimal. You can see Jean Vernois. He is checking the mash at one of his turbine mashes. Go ahead. This is Jean-Pierre, who is the Cantillon brewer up until his son took over. This is their mash tun. All right, so this is the other really important part, and I think we get a lot of questions here with Lambic Brewing. This is what they call a cool ship. This is a picture I took in 2004 in Brussels, and the idea is when they're done with this incredibly long mash, they pump their wort, the unfermented beer, up into this very shallow, big copper tun in the attic of the brewery. And the story goes that they open up the windows, and as they pump it in, all this magical wild yeast and everything goes in, which is true. But what really the important point is, they pump their wort over this entire shallow thing, and overnight, rather than going through a heat exchanger like our breweries here go, they cools down overnight in this shallow vat. And once it's cool, they're going to pump it down into those big oak casks you see. The other mystery of this whole thing is you always talk about how cobwebs and the terroir of the building is important, and don't ever kill a spider in a lambic brewery because it might affect the beer. This is a picture. It's not, obviously it's tough on an orange wall here, but you can see the cobwebs just still in there. I'm not saying they don't clean things, but there are cobwebs in these buildings. So go ahead. All right, so there's just another picture of the cool ship. Most cool ships are in Belgium. They're not, other breweries other than just lambic breweries use cool ships. It's not lambic specific, and there are cool ships now in the United States. I know that Allagash has one, and I know Jester King either has or is going to have one. So you can see the rafters here. The rafters have some of the mystique also. They think a lot of the microorganisms live in the rafters. And because of the EU, they actually had to change out the wood in the rafters. And it was the big hubbub, is it going to change the beer or not? So as we've been seeing, it has not really changed the beer that much. And we'll see newer pictures. This is the older rafters, and go ahead with the next. These are the new rafters above the Cantillon cool ship. I'm not sure the wood types at all. I just know in the mid-2000s when the EU was like going hardcore with their health regulations, they had to update things. So go ahead. Some of these pictures are just more showing cobwebs. They don't really come through. So go ahead. The bottling line at Cantillon. This is their plate chiller that they, or excuse me, a plate filter that they use. Yeah, the very few kegs. Now, one thing you'll understand that most of these beers are bottled, and the kegs that actually you see are very, very hard and obscure. I'm proud to announce, and Rob's said that very much we're supporters of each other. I'm very proud to announce that I'm going to have a keg of Cantillon Fufun at the Where the Wild Beers Are next week. So very, very few, very obscure, very expensive to obtain, but we're very proud to be pouring that next week. So go ahead. So I was very lucky, and this is going to one more segment. Very lucky to meet these guys back in the early 2000s. And one thing people ask about age of beers. One very, very nice thing about sour beers, they age really, really well. This is a 1982 Cantillon Gers that was shared, and it was divine. It was more copper than it was the fresher bottles. Still held up. I mean, the cork was still nice, but you could see the cobwebs just hanging on these bottles. So this is that mystique of Belgian brewing that everybody wants. They want to go over and experience, and it does happen. So this is Cantillon. Yep. This is the first Where the Wild Beers Are, and Jim Ellingson, who is a beer writer locally, he opened. This is a 1994 Rosie de Gambrinus. So these beers hold up amazingly well. There's a lot of Belgian beers that don't. There's a lot of American beers that do or don't. But these beers, by and large, if held properly, do hold up over time. You can just keep going. So this is one that they're actually adding fruit in. I'm not sure which beer this is, but it's either I think it's one of theirs for a special Swedish release where they're either using cranberries or something else, but they're really topping up these casks, making sure that there's not a lot of oxygen in these casks. This is if you've seen a picture of Cantillon, this is one of them that's really important, and it says basically time does not respect what is done without. So anything they are saying that Lambic to produce properly takes 2 to 3 years to actually do. So don't rush it. So anyway, that's really my bit on lambic beers. I've got a special called it's a Decam au Lambic that's over here that I'm going to pour a little bit. I don't unfortunately have enough for everybody, but I'm going to open them up and pour out to a few people. Take a whiff, sample, or whatever. These are amazing beers. They are very hard to obtain these days because the demand is going up. Cantillon is essentially a non-profit brewery. They have the entire family involved. You can see his kid bottling beers right here, and the old bottler. I mean, it's kind of for show, but it's really they're something that should be celebrated. There's something that should be supported. So, is there any last questions? Oh, I got one. Oh, I'm sorry. Where the Wild Beers Are is next weekend. We are very, very close to being full. It's if you go wherethewildbeersare.com. You can register. It's a $10 cover, and it's a collaborative beer festival. You actually bring sour, wild, or farmhouse beers to share. So read about it online, wherethewildbeersare.com. So anyway, any other questions? No? Good? All right. Thanks. And thank you to Rob for having me. I really feel honored to be part of this event.
Oh, man, no, thank you for being
No, so he does an amazing thing. I met with him the other day, and I'm like, what you are doing here is incredible and is very, very difficult. So, thank you for having me. This one? I'm sorry. One more thing I forgot. There was a good question. Lanny had some questions. Where would you go in Belgium to drink good beer? Anyone that goes to Belgium needs to buy this book or borrow this book from me. It's called The Good Beer Guide to Belgium. It's from Tim Webb. He also wrote a book, which I have here, called Lambic Land, and it's an amazing book. This book goes through almost every pub in Belgium and says what's good or not good, and obviously things change. This is a very, very highly recommended book. So if you have questions, I'm happy to talk about it.
So we are going to come into our last segment. Really, it's just a bonus round, as I had mentioned. These next two beers are going to be dessert beers. They're incredible. But if you have any punch tickets left, use those up. Otherwise, pay the $3. They're extremely worth it. We're going to then come around and we're going to take all your tasting sheets and Pat and myself, we're going to grade those. And the winner is going to get this storage cube right here, brought to you from Brubical. You guys at Brubical, thank you so much for donating this. You do stellar work. And if you guys want your own bottle storage, feel free to go to Brubical.com. These guys will take care of you. Oh, there's some goodies inside there. What is that?
I don't know, it doesn't have a label.
Oh, weird. I don't think it was distributed here in the States. Oh, Well, you're gonna get that too. That is one of the other Trappist ales, and that is the West Veteran 12, the world's best beer. Well, I don't know if that's. I mean, the verdict's out on that, but it is an outstanding beer, and it's very hard to get. There are some other goodies in there that we're gonna throw in as we take it back, but I just wanted to kind of show. Yeah, make sure you have your names on those. Stick around for this prize. And again, it's whoever guesses the most correct answers. And we're gonna go ahead and announce the winner to Belgium, 2 round-trip tickets. Now, this could take a little while just because there were a lot of promos that were out there for people buying Duvel products and Omegang and Schoof. So bear with us as we go through this, but it could take a while, but it might not. So, oh, that feels like a winner right there. All right, no drum roll or anything? Come on. All right.
Yes!
The winner to Belgium goes to raffle number 670861. 861.
Next.
Not here? All right. Well, this is good for all you guys, right? Yeah, I want to hear some more applause for that. So you're still in the hunt. All right. Stirring them up, stirring them up. Okay. The next possible winner could be 670533. Yeah! We got a winner here! Congratulations, buddy. Let's just confirm that. That's it. Yeah. Cheers, man. Congratulations. Absolutely. Yeah. We'll talk after this. So we'll come around with those, but thank you guys for being patient with us, and thank you guys. Hope you guys had another successful brown bag blind taste. Hope you learned lots, and please check us out on BetterBeerSociety.com, Facebook.com/Better Beer Society, and we announce the next one. We're looking at around December 5th for the 4th and final brown black blind tasting of the year. So cheers, and thank you guys all so much. Thank you guys for being patient again. We are about to do the big reveal, and we'll see how you guys did. It's a humbling experience. It's fun. It's meant to be fun, and hopefully you guys are going to leave with an improved palate. So it really doesn't matter if you win or lose, but if you do win, we got some cool prizes for you. All right, so without further ado, your welcome beer today was Avril Table Beer. Number 1 was and by the way, that welcome beer was number 25. So the number 1 for the first segment of wits, saisons, and triples, number 1 was La Trappe Wit. Number 2, Saison Dupont. Number 3, Saint Foyen Saison. Saint Foyen Saison. Saint Fulien. Okay? Thank you. Fulien. Triple Carmelite was number 4. Number 5 was Westmalle Triple. Number 6 was a curveball, and that was Jolly Pumpkin, and that was their Weizenbaum. Okay, moving on to number 7. The categories for this was your double and quad category. Number 7 was Chimay Red. Number 8 was Rochefort 8. These were doubles and quad. I'm sorry. The first 2 were doubles. Yep. Number 9 was St. Bernardus 12, which is a quad. Number 10 was Stropha Henry Quad. Number 11 was La Trappe Quad. All right, moving on to category 3. Your Belgian Pales, your Belgian IPAs, strong pale ales. Number 12 was an Orval. That was your Belgian Pale Ale. 13 was the Buffalo Belgian Bitter, Belgian IPA. Number 14 was Houblon Chouf, another Belgian IPA. Categories, there's a Belgian Strong Pale Ale is number 15 at Duvel, and it was Duvel Single. Number 16, also categorized as a Belgian Strong Pale, was Goose Island's Matilda, another monkey wrench thrown in the mix for you. Number 17, finishing out, was Quack, Belgian Strong Pale Ale. And then coming into the lambics, number 18 was Flanders Fred, which is a collaboration with Hair of the Dog and De Proof. Number 19 was Cantillon Goose. Number 20 was an unblended lambic, and that was from Cuvée de Jacobin. The Flanders Fred would have been a Flanders Red. That was number 18. Goose would have been a Goose. That's Cantillon. And the Cuvée de Jacobin is also a Flanders Red. That was number 20. Yep. Number 21 was Timmerman's White Lambic. And then number 22 was New Belgium's La Folie, which is an Oud Brun. And then rounding out our dessert beers was Castile Rouge as number 23, fruit beer. And then the Deus rounded out number 24, which is a beer brut. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the tasting here today. And thank you guys again, and I hope to see you at the next one. Cheers.